None of this was, we have to eat well, we have to do this. It was never a question of discipline. It was a question of, if we don't do this, I'm just going to be in the hospital tomorrow.
Namaste, my dear brothers and sisters. I'm a charged man these days, charged with the idea that we are these days living through very exciting times, and it's not something original. It's based on the teachings of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, who told us about 100 years ago that there is an evolutionary thrust at work. The human consciousness has reached a level where it is poised for the next leap. And the result would be a better world, a world which will be dominated by people who let their life be guided by love rather than the ego. Now, you can imagine what a difference that will make to the world. And then, who are these people who usher in this new world? Young people. And Sri Aurobindo visualized these children arriving in this world in Savitri and called them the sun eyed children of a marvelous dawn. And naturally, to reconstruct this world, to usher in that new order, there'll be some deconstruction required, there'll be some break from the past required. And therefore, he called them the barrier breakers of the world. And this is something they talked about 100 years ago, but then there are more and more people talking about it now. And without having read Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, which makes it even more significant, which means that now the phenomenon has become sufficiently clear for many people to perceive it and many mystics to visualize it. And on one hand, Gary Zukav talking about the five sensory human being giving way to the multisensory human being. David Hawkins talking about the level of human consciousness having gone up in the recent past so much more than it had gone in the previous several centuries. And Nikki Kartre talking about spirituality being no longer an individual quest, but becoming a global phenomenon. And then just a few days back, I was reading this book, Anatomy of the Spirit by Carolyn Myss. And of course, she has talked about this phenomenon at many places, but I'll read out just a few lines from the last chapter, or rather the afterword of this book. I know that I'm not the first to announce that this is a most exciting time to be alive. We are living in a time unlike any that have come before. We are living between two paradigms of power, or two paradigms of reality, internal and external, energetic and physical. We are restructuring ourselves and our relationships to personal and spiritual authority. Inevitably, that restructuring will reshape every aspect of our world culture in accordance with the sacred truth, all is one. And when she says, I know that I'm not the first to announce that, how true it is, because the Mother said about 75 years earlier, we are at an exceptional hour, a unique time, that we have this immense good fortune, this invaluable privilege of being present at the birth of a new world. And then a few lines later, she says, we can participate in it, we can become this new world. And truly, when one has such a marvelous opportunity, one should be ready to give up everything for its sake. And I have the good fortune of welcoming here today to the Yes Forum, not one, but two such sun eyed children of a marvelous dawn, Shivani and Alex. So I'll leave them to talk to each other to unravel their mission, and how you'll be able to see how different they are from the young people we're accustomed to in my generation.
Thank you, Bijlani ji, for that wonderful introduction to us. I don't know how marvelous we can call ourselves or label us as, but we've been thrust into this path. So, for me at least, I think it's the same for Alex. There is no other way. There is no other when I say there is no other way, it's in one sense of we would probably be extremely depressed and sad and just not know what to do with our lives if we didn't have this light in our lives. And it's because of what we have found through the words of Mother and Sri Aurobindo, that we have all the experiences we have within us. We've had a almost a disciplined way or a way of understanding what's actually going on around us. And I think this is where, Alex, you can jump in with when you were very young. And me, I was born into this path. So a lot of the things I was kind of already told from before. But you growing up in a society where, forget Shorban and Mother, but spirituality in itself didn't exist. How was it growing up with this force within you in a society that didn't accept it?
Yeah, it was very, very difficult, it's true. But I think it was necessary for me to see this dark path, to see this dark world without the divine. I think it's also an experience to live. So yeah, I am born in Paris, and of course the spirituality here is you have religion, but it's a little different. Um, so all my life I have tried to find what I can say an absolute, something pure or something intense. It was impossible for me to find this in Paris in this time. So I have write a lot of book. I have created a lot of fiction, and I have put all my quest in this book. But it was not necessary. It was not enough. And but finally, after a long process, I have found the first book of Sri Aurobindo, a book of Sri Aurobindo, my first. It was The Secret of the Veda. And for me, it was a revelation. Uh, it was because he speak about the existence of the gods, the existence of the invisible world, and all this reality for me in my in my life don't existing. So when I have read Sri Aurobindo, I have think, yes, it's true. This is existing. All this world, invisible, all this other dimension, I recognize this is a real book. And so, but it takes time for me after to to go really in the path. I remember it was in Goa, so in India. India helped me a lot in this process because in India you have some spiritual power in the invisible, uh, which help, I think, everybody. Uh, every time I say in Europe, it's more difficult to make the sadhana because it's like all the world outside is so against the spiritual progress. But in India, it's like when I'm coming in India, it's the moment I have my first spiritual experience to feel the quiet, to feel the absolute, to understand the God, many reality existing in one way.
And can exist together at the same time.
Yes, exactly. And after so one day I was with Shivani, and I have taken the decision to do the sadhana. But really, not only the Sunday, not only 20%, not only to follow this path with all the force I can, with all my the intensity, and slowly I have feel the fire of the agni of the psychic burn. And and in this time I have read a lot of the letters of the yoga, and I recognize all the experience I have. Sri Aurobindo explain.
And it gives a way to process everything you were going through already.
Yes. So today I think we are really lucky because Sri Aurobindo have write for us.
Has done the work, shown us the
Yeah,
paths. Yeah.
yeah. He have made the way more easy for us because now we need to follow. He, because he was the avatar with the mother, so they have created the path. So for us now, it's a grace. And I think I have waited this moment for many life before to have this capacity, how you have said, to begin in a new world. it's coming. It's not, we can feel.
It's not just in our imaginations, it's here. It's already here.
So,
Another thing I wanted to like touch on with your experience and also mine and a lot of people young people who are in the path is there's a lot of sadness, a lot of depression that I think young people are going through at this time because everything is changing around us. And for the light to come in, I think what exists now in society needs to break down. There needs to be a destruction of what already is. Within that destruction, we are seeing a lot of very young people go into very deep depressions, a lot of mental issues that are cropping up. People are also it's not getting normalized as well, and people are talking about it. And I feel like people are talking about it because there's a lot of it as well. And I think your experience in Paris of
right.
going into a deep depression, of a deep darkness, and being able to come out of it through the spiritual path can really set an example or show today's children that they're not abnormal in any way.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think sadness is a message of the divine also. It's a message of something. Why we are sad, why we are in depression, it's because in the psychic, you can say in the spiritual aspect of us, we know something more greater, weight us. So the sadness is a way of the fusion with another life.
And I also remember we were talking about how depression is more than sadness. It's the mental, the mind going into overdrive. And it's also making our generation kind of realize that there has to be something beyond the mind.
Yes.
That the mind is no longer enough. This world of logic and sense, where for so many years we were told that it's only the world of the mind that is important. And I think young people are now starting to kind of realize that there is something way beyond the mental as well. So how did you, again, living in a world where Sri Aurobindo wasn't known, how did you go from the mental overdrive, when the mind just goes on and on, into becoming quiet within? And of course, Sri Aurobindo has helped, and we'll talk about it. But what did you do before that?
It was a long way because we have two parts. We have the mind and we have also the vital. And in this sadhana, we need to make more quiet the mind and the vital. So it's a long process because normally we think too much, and 99% of what we think is stupid. It's not very useful. And the vital, so vital is the desire, the emotion, the passion also is very strong. And so the mind, the vital, and the body, also the tamas of the body, the heaviness of the body, all these three can hide the psychic and the spiritual world and the voice of the mother, of the divine mother. So the first mission of the sadhana for everybody, it's how Sri Aurobindo explained, it's to quiet the mind, quiet the vital, but this takes a very, very long time. So for me, it's not finished yet. It's still in process. And but more we are quiet, more we can receive the light of the insight of another world. Above the head, we can go more deep in the psychic. So in this yoga, we have really two efforts to make. It's to open the psychic. We can use meditation in this center to connect with the grace of the divine mother, the light. We can to become like a children of the mother. It's meditation really of light, of love. And we have another meditation. It's what we call the spiritualization. It's above the head to try to call the force, to call the light, to call the ananda, the knowledge. So I have tried these two meditation more I can and try to not stop. It's not because I feel a little peace, I stop. It was like how the rishi say, if you reach one step, it's beautiful. You need to be so graceful for this, but you need to look the other step. And it was really my quest to never stop to try to, of course, between two steps, we need to integrate what we receive. So slowly I have learned how the yoga working, the ascension, the integration. So it's so interesting. It's difficult, but it's so
It's fun.
interesting. Yeah.
Is there any other way? Because it's the thing that again, as you were saying, it's the thing that got us all out of this mind's incessant pain in one sense. And I think in that same stream, because we live in Goa, which is now being touted as the Las Vegas of spirituality, I think one thing, especially because it's all young people who go to Goa, right? They go in search of another way of life, another sense of spirituality, another perspective.
Mm.
One thing I really would like to talk about that a lot of young people keep getting stuck into, and that's how they get into cults or into problematic communities, etc., is the sense of viveka, of discernment.
Yeah.
How that was the first thing you kind of developed within you
Yeah.
to stay in the body and to understand, to become conscious of what feels truly good. What does it mean to feel good? Versus what feels like just it's good for the moment, but it's not great for after. So yeah, speak a little bit about
Yeah, it was very interesting because uh, before to try really to go in some active meditation, I have really for 2 years tried to be a
tried to be a witness.
to be in the purusha, so to observe what I feel, what I'm thinking, but to be detached, because or not, we are every time we feel something, we are totally involved in this. If we feel angriness, fear, we have no distance. We are totally involved. The purusha is captured, is involved in the prakriti. We have no detachment. So we are the puppet of the nature, of the vital, of the dark force also. So my first mission for 2 years, it was to try to be in the purusha, to have detachment with emotion, thinking also. Yeah, it was. I think it's the most important thing to do is to have this detachment or not.
And with everything, like even this kind of consciousness that we practiced and we're still doing in some sense, to be conscious of, okay, I am eating and I'm aware of how it's making me feel. Because me too, when I went to Bangalore, for example, I always had very sattvic food at home. And I was very annoyed by the fact that I wasn't allowed to eat burgers. But coming out of the ashram and going into that sort of a very junk food heavy life, my body reacted immediately.
Yeah.
And for you, it was the opposite. You were coming in from lots of pasta and into like this. And I think we both, even though we were coming from opposite sides of the same thing, we both, the moment you become aware of how is my body feeling, we were like, we can't do this anymore. So none of this was we have to eat well. We have to do this. It was never a question of discipline. It was a question of if we don't do this, I'm just going to be in the hospital tomorrow. Every time.
Yeah. We realize also in this yoga, the force we call, it's very subtle. How you say
Subtle.
Subtle. So if we are too much heavy, if we too much junk food, if we drink, if we can receive this force. So we need really what we call purity. And so it's difficult, it takes time.
Yeah, but I think it also happens in a sense automatically.
Mm.
The moment, that's why you start from this idea of discernment. You start from this idea of becoming conscious in your body and just learning how to instinctually listen to your body.
Yeah.
And once you do that, everything else kind of starts to fall into place.
Mm.
And of course, if you have questions, as you said, letters of the yoga.
Yeah,
And
to read really Sri Aurobindo and to be open to the force behind the walls. Um, Also, I recommend to read Savitri a lot because it's a scripture. Um, so yeah,
I think to finish, we might be the next generation, but I don't know what we are doing by ourselves. I think this is just
Mm.
the mother and Sri Aurobindo both just showing us the path and taking us there. I was born into this life. Alex was thrust into it. And I think and there's a lot of other people like us who are searching for answers, and they kind of come to the same conclusions that I have come to as well, being part of the ashram for so long.
Mhm.
And it's that spirituality is the only way forward. It's the only way for peace in a world that is completely breaking down today.
Yeah, it's true, and the light can come everywhere, uh, everywhere. So yeah, we have a lot of hope, I think, for the future.
Yeah.
Voilà.
So, my dear sisters and brothers, you saw two of these sun-eyed children of a marvelous dawn. They started so differently. As Shivani said, she was almost sort of born into it, and sometimes she says that she was born for this type of a life right in the mother's womb. She was born into a family which was charged with spirituality, and then the first school that she went to, and the school that she ended up spending 14 years at, uh, was the Mothers International School. So, sort of, she treated the school and the Sri Aurobindo Ashram Delhi branch as home, and she still considers them home. Uh, and she has a large spiritual family here. So, for her, it was a sort of a natural progression to grow into a spiritual life, a life with a difference. And she had that sort of a freedom available in the family to be able to deviate from the so called norms of normal life. On the other hand, Alex was born in France, and the atmosphere was not very spiritual. But then he had his first spiritual experience when he was just 14, and initially couldn't understand it. Felt that probably it was some sort of figment of imagination, maybe something weird, something which probably also made him a bit scared. But then it was just 10 years later, at age 25 or so, that he read Sri Aurobindo's The Secret of the Veda. How he landed on it may look accidental, but I'm sure there was a plan behind it. And the fact that he could pick up this book and get a lot from it itself means that he came prepared in this world for that type of an approach to life. Because the secret of the Veda is one of the most difficult works of Sri Aurobindo. And to start with this, I start with that, and to be able to get so much from it itself speaks of the preparation that had already gone into his life. And then after that, he has been turning to the letters on yoga, which have been answering the difficulties and questions that he has, because naturally these letters are in response to the difficulties and questions that the seekers at Sri Aurobindo Ashram Pondicherry raised. And, these obstacles and difficulties and doubts that they had those days, the seekers have even today. So those letters are extremely relevant, giving us answers straight from the master to all these difficulties. And uh, then he, of course, you can see that the intensity with which he's on the path and the sincerity with which he's there is so transparent. And on the other hand, Shivani started differently, but by age 30, they're just about 30, their paths have converged in such a way that now they can relate to each other so well. So whether it, and in fact, one shouldn't say that it has happened all within 30 years and so fast. That may look surprising, but the homework of previous lives and a long evolutionary past that they both had, in relation to that, probably 30 years is a very short time, but then that period was very long. And that's how, although they were born in two different types of atmospheres, the path that they were eventually going to take was predetermined, and that's how they could converge within the short period of 30 years along the same type of a path, discover Sri Aurobindo and the mother, and be on the same type of journey. So that would be one way of looking at it. So I don't know whether it is entirely the homework done in previous lives, or whether it is the evolutionary thrust, or both put together. Probably it's both put together that are that is responsible for more and more very young people being born who are distinctly different from what was considered the norm earlier. It's not that such children were not born earlier. Uh, they were being born, and Sri Aurobindo said that rishis have always been born, and it's sometimes a misunderstanding to feel that they were born only in ancient times. So people who have chosen an unconventional path to pursue the divine mode sincerely and seriously uh, have always been there. But there's a distinct perception that their number is growing. And therefore, naturally, many of them will have parents who will find it difficult to understand them. And that is what imposes a great deal of responsibility on the parents and grandparents, people of my generation. They may not be with them, but at least they can try to understand them. If they start asking deep existential questions at a very young age, uh, we should not dismiss them. We should not discourage those questions. We should not try to tell them that, well, these are weird things, keep away from them. Try to think more like the normal, so called normal people. Because this is another type of normalcy that we have to get used to. And later on, when it comes to the choice of career or choice of a partner, and they have criteria different from ours, then we should not be very surprised, and try to allow for those differences, because the world is changing, and therefore many of the old norms and criteria that we had for deciding such major things in life like career and a partner and so on, those criteria no longer hold, and that is not the way we'll be able to change the world if those same things continue, because we all want to progress, we want the world to get better, but then progress and getting better inevitably involves change. So it's a paradox that while we want to improve, we want a better world, we resist change. So that's a paradox, and we have to understand that. And another important thing is that when they are preparing for this type of a life, there may be a certain period required at a young age, when we normally were earlier expecting them to either get married or start earning, that they are doing neither of these things. They are doing much more of what we may call paying attention to their inner life. So that inner life also involves a different type of work which is not visible. And without that type of inner work, spiritual progress cannot have sort of be at that place where you are poised for a takeoff. So you need that inner work. So it allow for that time also. Eventually, outer work will come, particularly if they are on the path of Sri Aurobindo and the mother, because the simplest and safest path of sadhana that they have shown us is getting involved in the world, not rejecting the world, but getting involved in it, getting involved in it from a higher plane, and so that your body and mind, the instruments, are at work, but they are at work in light of your deepest self. So eventually that work will come. It may be of a different type. And now they may eventually go for a different type of balance between outer work and inner work. But a period when they are apparently doing nothing may also be required, because that is when they are concentrating on the inner work, which will equip them for that takeoff. When they can combine both and make outer work more meaningful, use this outer work as material which will lead to inner churning. And as a result of that inner churning will be an inner change which will get reflected into a still better outer life. So that is the way it will go on. And therefore, the balance between inner work and outer work may keep changing throughout life. But both will continue, so that we can be assured of that it's not that they will spend their whole life just sitting in a cave or in a forest. At least that's not what Sri Aurobindo and the mother encouraged. So with that, we wish Shivani and Alex all the best, and we hope that their tribe multiplies and we have more and more such young people who are the uh, ones who will usher in that new order, that new and better world, driven by love rather than the ego. That is the type of world Sri Aurobindo and the mother have talked about. And here you've seen two of the children of the mother who uh, sort of hold a lot of promise in being amongst those who will usher in this new world. Thank you all. And thank you, Shivani and Alex.